to have statement as well as everyday pieces. She likes to show all sides of her personality through her clothing. If she really wants it, she can afford it or will find a way to get it. She likes to attend events wearing her statement pieces. On the other side, she wears her everyday pieces running errands or hanging with friends and family.
You've gotten so far. Noel?
So yes, as I said, I was working on the adjectives and the language that describes the female that represents, Studious Monday, or that inspires me to design. And she's a very particular person. She's straddling tradition and modernity, essentially. Her proud reconciliation is Studious Monday, which is a wardrobe that consists of seasonless pieces that allows her to uphold her values while functioning in everyday American life. So that's just kind of what I've been working through.
Good job.
These are, I love the progress. Hopefully I don't upend some of your ideals by the time this call is over. But hopefully what I'll do is reaffirm to you that you're on the right track. That's my goal.
Right. So I think one of the first questions should be is to ask Michael, what do you consider a brand identity to be, like its definition?
A brand identity. Wow. So I think I should probably share this story. I've shared it plenty of times, but I think it's worth resharing. I was speaking at this event when I was back home in Indianapolis last year, and a guy comes up to me after the talk, and he was talking about how, this is so good. And da, 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 da. He was like, I'm trying to figure out how to brand myself, and I'm really just looking, to get into this particular space. And da, da, da. And I'm like, cool. And I asked him, I said, well, who are you? And he goes, oh, I'm a DJ, I'm a poet, I'm a writer, I'm a graphic designer, da, 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 da. And I sit there listening to him. He went, because he was really excited. He went for about 2 minutes. And I said, that's awesome. I said, but who are you? And he froze and he looked at me. He said, I've got a lot of work to do, don't I? I said, I think so. And the reason why I'm saying that is because a lot of times people think about branding themselves. They think about the things that they do, the services that they offer, and they also often think about how they want to be publicly seen, right? How they want people to perceive them. When in reality, when I think about your brand identity, I'm thinking about who is it that you actually are, and how can you use the technology of who you are to communicate that to the world that's relevant to whatever product or service you're offering. For me, I have several things that I do professionally. Some would probably say too much. Anyway, but I have several things. I have several things that I do professionally. But my brand itself does not change across platforms, right? I show up for Indiana Fashion Foundation, and who I show up as here is specific to this platform. However, it is still very much tied to my core identity. The awesome thing about us as individuals, as human beings, as these beings, right? The awesome thing about us is that we're multidimensional. And so because we're multidimensional, I can present something to you one day. Have you ever been talking about a person to some people, and one person goes, oh, they are such and such. And the other person goes, well, they're such and such. And then they're polar opposite experiences. It doesn't mean that either one of those experiences is invalid or those perspectives is wrong. What it tells me is that as a multidimensional being, this person has been able to navigate based on who they're with, where they are. And I'm not talking about being a chameleon. That's not what I'm talking about, but exposing different dimensions of who they are as an individual. And so when I talk about brand identity, it is me taking who I am and presenting it in a way that's relevant, taking one of the dimensions or multiple dimensions of myself and presenting it in a way that's relevant to that particular task, to that particular market, to that particular vocation.
And to be fair, we can tie that into the actual definition. Book definition is, and I'm going to explain it because Michael really hit it on the head. What is a brand identity? A brand identity is made up of what your brand says, what your values are, and how you communicate your product and what you want people to feel when they interact with it. Essentially, your brand identity is the personality of your business through you and a promise to your customer to be you. That is your brand identity.
Unfortunately, let me say this, unfortunately, once you start talking about branding, people automatically start going to logo and website and da-da-da-da-da. And like, those are like technologies and channels to communicate who you are. That is not branding in and of itself. And when we were on the call the other day, I wrote so many notes down. Of course, we'll end up getting to some of these points, but I wrote so many things down because I'm like, I think, I have some pretty cool stories that I'll probably be able to share throughout the time, but I think we really need to understand the depth of branding and how it intersects with different parts of the business, because ultimately what we're constantly doing in our business, I don't care whether you're working on the business development side, whatever area of product development, if you're working on anything, all of it's going to be branding. And I think that's what you're going to find out, which is why Brenda's emphasizing so much your profile, your customer profile, knowing that, and because everything you do is branding, no matter what it is, even down to your accounting, it's branding.
Seriously, even your own personal profiles on social media are part of your branding, which is why a lot of artists and designers have private ones that nobody even knows about, because they really have to pay attention to everything that they put out there. It kind of sucks, but at the same time, it's what brings you, it's what's going to make you money.
Because if y'all think that Beyonce don't have a profile that y'all don't know about, y'all tripping.
They don't have a profile on Instagram, y'all tripping. It's just not anything we're gonna see, but yes, Michael, keep going. Please give us some of your notes, because he did take some awesome notes. So I'm gonna let Michael take charge here.
No, I want you to ask me questions.
Okay, so now that we've touched on the actual definition of brand identity, which is so natural, you explained it better than I could ever. How do we get there? What do you think should be the first step in figuring out your brand identity?
Well, I think that I think that Emily was onto something, and her and April especially were onto something. These adjectives they started to develop around their brands, around their culture of their business. Emily's been on another platform with me in my business, so she's heard me talk about this a little bit, or a lot of it actually. But I am very, very big on values, and I'll tell you why. Because I was in my business just operating, wearing myself out. I won't get into details. I got to a point where I really need to reorganize my business. And so when I got to the point where I needed to reorganize my business, I started asking the question, what value do I want to provide to clients? What value do I want to provide to the clients? What value do I want to provide? And I'll never forget that I had this moment, because I was struggling with it probably for 4 days, like straight, because I had decided to lock myself into the room. Actually, the room I'm in right now. I decided to lock myself in the room to really just reorganize my business over the course of a week. But 4 of those days, I'm struggling with this concept and this conversation around value. And I kept asking myself, well, what value I had it written on a piece of paper. What value do I want to add to clients? What value do I add to clients? And I'll never forget, one day, it just dawned on me, you're asking the wrong question. The question is not what value do I want to add? The question is, what do I value? Mm-hmm. And once I got on that,
like that light bulb goes off.
I automatically was able to place, this is where I'm valuable. Here's what I'm saying, why I'm saying that. I teach that, and Emily's probably heard me say this multiple times. I teach that We are the sum total of our values. Who we are as individuals are the sum total. If you want to know what somebody values, just look at the way they conduct their lives. Look at the way they navigate. They are the sum total of their values. Because of that, we have to be very much in tune with that, because we could be presenting something that's not in alignment with our values. Have you ever had somebody say something to you and like, that's not even like what I think. That's not even how I, but that's the experience they're having with you. Mm-hmm. And it's easy to go, well, that's your experience. But sometimes it's not just their experience. Sometimes because you are not tethered to and don't really understand your values, you are not presenting to them. And that's how branding works, is why are people navigating my brand this way? Why are people engaging with my brand this way? That is not the way that I desire them to. Perhaps you're not leading with values. Because if you lead with values, then you'll be able to be in alignment with, okay, this is who I am. So where do you start? To your question, where do you start? You start not asking, what's my product? You start not asking, what experience do I want to give them? You start not asking, what are my technical skills? You don't start asking those things. You start off by asking, what do I value? Because in asking, what do I value, and leading with what you value, within your values lies your value. I say it this way often. Now that I give you that context, I want to make it very succinct for you. We don't operate to value, we operate from it. We don't operate to value, we operate from it. Because operating to value, you start at a deficiency. And so you start from the, so to speak, when you're operating to value, you're saying, I don't have this. And so now I've got to go up into the value. And so I've got to prove myself to clients, prove myself to customers. One of the things that I think people probably find very interesting about me is anybody who knows me knows that I'm very like just approachable. You can talk to me, deal with me. I'm very much that guy. But my response to when people say certain things to me, people are like, hey, I've had people go, huh? Because somebody said to me a few days ago, you're so good at this. And I go, I know. Right. And for them, it's like, oh, what did you say? I said, I know. I said, I don't do anything that I'm not good at. And the reason why that's important is I don't have to operate to value. I started off in business knowing my value. And because I know my value, I'm in business. I'm doing what I'm doing. And so I'm not operating from a deficiency. I'm not operating from deficiency to value. I'm operating from value, so that when I show up as the expert. I show up as a professional. I show up as the person they're coming to for expert service. I don't want to go to a doctor whose hand's shaking while he's doing surgery. I don't want that. Because if your hand's shaking while you're doing surgery because you're not sure, then you don't get to perform on me. Same thing. I don't want to wear clothes from a designer who is not sure about themselves, because then one of my hems is going to be out of place, and then or my shoe is going to be the sole's going to be detaching from the rest of the shoe because you're designing shaky. You're designing from deficiency. Think about this: if you're working from deficiency into value, those are also the people who when it comes time to make investments in their business, they'll say, what's the cheapest way I can do this?
Yep. Very true. I agree with that.
And when you take the cheap route, you produce a cheap product. That's the reason why I say lead with value, right? Lead with values, because once I understand one of my values is autonomy. That's literally in my business plan. Autonomy is one of my. How I define autonomy, I really want to pull out. Let me see if I can pull it out real quick. Look at that. I'm organized now.
We didn't all start that way, okay, guys? So it could totally, it's okay.
But, I very much value autonomy. And the reason why I value autonomy is because as an entrepreneur, oftentimes people go, oh, he has extra time because he's an entrepreneur. When the truth of the matter is that as an entrepreneur, my time is that much more precious because I have to do everything, right? And so one of the things that, I found early on in my entrepreneurial career is that like my family knew that I was working for myself. And so because they knew I was working for myself, I'd be the one, hey, Mike, can you go? Hey, Mike, can you? Hey, Mike, can you? And when I would say no, Well, I mean, you don't have to be at a 9 to 5. No, I have to be at a 9 to 9. I'm at a 7 to 7. I'm at a 7 to midnight because I'm doing things different. So when I said autonomy, I said this term embodies 3 distinct values within itself. Firstly, to me, autonomy denotes freedom. This includes freedom of thought, process, and expression. Secondly, it involves self-discipline or self-governance, which means that you are not bound to the system of another, but have an internal system that guides you. Finally, autonomy involves self-trust. So when I talk about autonomy, within itself, it has all these values, but I value that. And so the way that I navigate in my business is, first of all, if we go to the freedom of thought, process, and expression, when I introduce the term identity strategist, everybody goes, oh, you do branding. And I go, no, I don't do branding. I do identity strategy. In that value alone, I'm able to be self-defined. I'm able to say, no, this is the lane that I've carved for myself. This is space that I've carved for myself. Then we talk about the self-governance thing, the self-discipline and self-governance thing. The self-governance thing says, now, based on me being self-defined, I have the ability now to define my own systems, define my own processes, and to define how it is that I run my business. Then the final thing is self-trust. The other part is, now that I've built these processes, I've built this identity, I'm self-defined. Now I've built a level of trust within what I've developed, what I've built, so that when I go to people, when I present it to people, they are able as well to trust it. And in me operating in my autonomy, I'm giving people that same liberty, that same value. So I'm saying that to say that me valuing autonomy, I'm going to naturally attract people who want to work autonomously. But if I'm not operating from that value, people are going to come to me and they're going to go, oh, I need this. I came to you because you're a person who I think, can really help me to work autonomously and help me have the freedom to do this and help me develop my processes. But if I'm operating from deficiency to value, I'm operating from deficiency to autonomy, then I'm not really becoming the representation of autonomy. And so when they come to me, they're expecting to have this particular experience, but I'm constantly trying to prove my value instead of being the example of that value. You get what I'm saying? And so that's the reason why for me, it is very important for me that before I open my mouth to talk about things or to say, this is what I do professionally, that I first become it. And, my client told me the other day after a 3-hour call, she said to me, you need to come with a warning label. She says, because people don't understand the depths that you have to go to in order to brand yourself, in order to really present yourself, because it's not as simple as, hey, I've decided during Fashion Week, Indiana Fashion Week this year, I had a very, in-depth conversation with Misty and her husband. And I was like, Misty, you have to embody this. You have to, and as you all see, and as you all know, I get very passionate about things when I start talking, because and the reason why I get so passionate is because, again, this is coming from who I am. I'm not talking from a standpoint of things that are abstract and idealistic. I am becoming this. And I was telling Misty, I was like, Misty, you have to step in the confidence of what it is that you're presenting. Like, be that, do that. Why am I saying that? Because Misty's product, anybody who's seen Misty's product, it is superb. It is top notch. And I'm not talking about from a distance looking. Like, if you go and you look at the construction of her pieces, the fabrics that she used, you can tell that she's put time, effort, thought, investment into it. But none of that is going to matter if you're operating in that way, but from deficiency.
Absolutely.
Have you all ever seen, somebody's in New York.
I'm totally muting.
You're good. I just cried. Listen, if I wasn't in this room with no windows, you already know, even here in Jersey. But have you all ever seen like this scenario with rappers or basketball players? I hate to stereotype this way, but I'm just saying it's happened mostly in these areas, of basketball players, football players, where they go into the league or they get into music and they build these careers, start making this money, then they go off the scene, and then you find out, 10 years later, oh, here he is popping up working at Target or whatever, which is nothing wrong with that. But you're going, what happened to all that money? Well, that's because you're going into a place where the thing that you desire exists, but you don't have the internal wherewithal to keep it because you're operating from deficiency. It's taking poverty mentality into the White House, taking poverty mentality into access. You can't do that. And so when we're talking about where to start, we start with what do I value? And we start with becoming the sum total of those values and presenting ourselves in the way that we are the sum total of those values. Because if we don't, we're going to be operating from deficiency. So you can do all the things, all the business things that you're supposed to do. You can even start getting sales. See, and I think people are mistaken. The bottom line in business, yes, you get sales, you make money. That's not the end of it, because at any given moment, if you're depending solely on making those sales to sustain, then what's going to happen is you're going to find yourself in a place that when sales are not, and you're operating from deficiency, when sales are not going the way, then you're going to start going, 45% off just to make some money. No. Because then you're operating again from deficiency into anybody. I am, Brenda, you know this about me. I'm a person who I understand the value of the work that I do so much, but I also simultaneously, because I'm not operating from deficiency, I'm not intimidated by the value of other people's work. And so when it comes to my business, I am very much like, here's the price of my business. This is what you're going to pay. It's just very much that. However, I understand that everybody's not at a place to pay the amount that I charge for my business, things like that. So because I'm not operating from deficiency, even if I could use the money, even if I could, get somebody to, if somebody needs to come into my program and I know they need to come into it and I know that they're not going to be able to pay me, I'm like, come on, I will take the loss, so to speak, in order to get you where, because see, the value of my business is not found in people paying me. It's found in me knowing that my processes work. So if I bring somebody into my program, bring somebody into my business, and they're not able to pay me, on the other side of the results that they yield, I know that that's what happens when you're able to operate from value into the thing. Because when you operate from value and you become that thing, then you're not going to discount yourself, number one, but you're also not afraid of the investment that it may take in order for you to get to the place where you manifest or have tangibly the things that you desire or become the brand that you desire to be. All that to answer one question, but that, yes. Unmute.
Forgot that I muted myself for New York. It also, everything Michael touched on is important, and it leads you to not selling yourself short, starting there. And I think we've all been guilty. So that's where Michael and I can be very beneficial to you guys. We've all started from that place. I started my business from that place of knowing I had a valuable product, but still coming from a place of deficiency. And when I started, I took on so many free clients. I thought I had to do things for free, go out there. I didn't need to do that. I wasted my time. And it undersold my business. And what ended up happening, because I was shortening my customers, my clients had no respect for us as a brand. So everything Michael's like, yup.
I can go into so many things like that. But let me say this about branding. One of the things that I wrote during our call the other day is that branding is not a single project. It's an ongoing conversation.
Every day.
It's a conversation with yourself and a conversation with your audience and or clients. The conversation with yourself is not about is my logo good enough? Do I need to redesign my business cards? That's not the conversation you're having with yourself ongoing. Every morning you wake up, you're going, am I being who I value? Am I being what I value? Am I showing up as this thing? Because if I'm not showing up as this thing, I'm going to get on my calls with clients, or I'm going to get on calls with vendors showing up in a different way other than from the place that of who I am. And so your daily check with yourself has to be, your daily conversation, branding conversation with yourself is, am I operating in what I value? Which is going to cause you to go back to those adjectives and go, this is who I said I am. This is what I say I value. And if I'm not being that, I understand that every place I show up, I'm going to show up with an absence there. Then the conversation with your clients is not always you talking to them, because conversations really should be on your end, 75% listening, 25% talking, really. And so your conversation with your clients and your customer is listening to them, because you're listening for, are you having the experience with me that I'm supposed to be giving you? What is the next thing that I need to present up front? What are they asking for? Is this the right client for me? Because somebody might come and buy something and then be the one to also have all these complaints. Well, my friend, you don't have to buy from me. And so there's this ongoing conversation, and branding is this ongoing conversation. And I need to say this about that ongoing conversation is, think about before the pandemic, right? Before the pandemic, think about the things that you valued before the pandemic. The pandemic hits, and then I'll guarantee that most of us have a whole interesting, different set of values than we had before the pandemic, because it gave us different perspective. I'm saying that to say, I say that we're the sum total of our values, which means that if our values change, guess what? So do we.
And so does our business. I'm glad you said that, because
so do we, and so does our business.
Constantly evolving. So your brand identity has to evolve with it.
Yes.
Too many people get stuck in this ideal that, oh, I built this brand identity and this is all my business could ever be. It can never grow. It can never change. And I'm in this box permanently. And this is why a lot of businesses end up shutting down and never resurging again. You consistently have to evolve. Your business consistently evolves with you.
One of the traditional retailers that is killing the game right now is Selfridges.
Yeah.
Selfridges over in London, killing. Here's why: is that when Selfridges started getting the clue, oh, brick and mortar is about to go down, what innovative ways can we shift? Another one that's doing it domestically is Macy's. Macy's killing it, because the moment that the playing field changed, they started going, okay, our values are shifting now as a brand. And so what do we need to value? They understand that people are no longer buying products. People are buying cultures and experience. That's really what people are buying. And so Macy's said, let us go buy this. There was a little novelty store here in New York called Story. Macy's went and bought Story, and then started putting Story concept shops in many of their stores. Why are they doing that? Because it creates a culture. And every month or so, every quarter, I think they change the theme of these concept shops. And it makes people want to come back to the store, because what do you have now? What are you presenting now? And then they do events surrounding these things. Selfridges has all these young, cool brands. Yes, they beefed up their social media and their online e-commerce platforms. But what they've done more so is they started creating experiences in stores so that people want to start coming into Selfridges to experience it. But my point is, they are finding different ways, multiple ways to communicate who it is they are. But I'm saying Selfridges is an example of a store. That store started like 1905 or something, 100 years ago, but has gone probably through the ups and downs. But what is the amazing part about this is that Henry Selfridge, who started the store, was a man who always was looking for the next innovative thing, the next way to evolve the business, evolve the brand, which is why 100 years later, it's more relevant than most of these department stores are now, because they, in their spirit, in their identity, is this thing to move forward, to discover the next elevation, the next evolution of that brand, of that business. And that's the cool thing. When Mr. Selfridge, if you have never seen, it's not completely accurate, but if you've ever never seen the show Selfridges, Mr. Selfridge, rather, it's called Mr. Selfridge. I would just encourage anybody who's in fashion just to watch that, because it's just, or anybody in retail really, but to watch that, because it's called Mr. Selfridge, and I think it's on Amazon Prime. But I'm bringing that conversation up because that store has gone through many evolutions, but not based on we're trying to make sales. Because even if you look at the history of it, the store has been through so many like financial downs, but they did it so that they could evolve into the next space. We can't be afraid when we're in evolution and as our values are shifting, we can't be afraid of what seems like loss, because there are going to be moments where we're like, man, I'm at loss. But that does not mean to start operating from deficiency. That means, okay, let me get the clues. Where are my values shifting? Because when those moments happen, more than likely your values are shifting. I mean, think about it. The pandemic literally shut us down. And in that moment, for most people, it was a moment for value shifting. It was a moment for perspective. And so when you get in those moments where clients are not responding the way they are, you don't go, what sale can I have? Or what product can I develop? You go, okay, there's a shift in value now that's happening with me, because I'm no longer identifying with them. They're no longer identifying with me in the way they have previously. And so what can I do, or who can I be now? What value can I release? What value can I bring in? What values can I shift in order now to, because the other thing is that you're going to have a million values, probably a whole bunch of values, and every element of you is not necessary to every space that you exist in, right? Necessarily. But there may be a shift that happens in your business where one value that really wasn't as important increases in importance. And so now you have to bring that and introduce that into the conversation. Guess what? That don't mean that you're being false or phony. Is that now people are getting to see a new dimension of you, a new dimension of your brand. And I think that's important, that as you have this ongoing conversation, because I'm still on the same point that I made, as you're having this ongoing conversation with yourself and with your clients, it's not around what products do I need to offer. It's what experience do I need to be? Who do I need to be? And what experience do I need to be in order to navigate this next space and make space for evolution in your conversation?
That's actually what we were discussing before you came on. Ashley and I were discussing that, and April came on board also and was sharing with us that she's been communicating with customers. And I'm like, that's the perfect way, ask them, how could this experience be better? What is it about my brand that keeps you coming back? What do you like about my products? Why? It's just building that story and using your customers to build that story, because they're the ones that are buying. Okay. Give us direction on, I wouldn't say give us direction. I think one of the things that most brands struggle with, aside from brand identity and figuring out the first steps to get there, is not so much evolving, is getting through those moments where their brand is struggling, which we just touched on. It's one thing to get through the struggle by learning your values again, but how do you deal with that financially?
This is good. So to my next point is branding takes patience. That's my very next point. So financially speaking, let's go back to values real quick. Because values, one of the things that I always say is who you are will inform you. Brand, do you remember this?
Yes.
Who you are will inform you.
Yeah.
Who you are will inform you. This is why it's important. Because if you are making investments in things, your values will communicate to you what to invest in. When businesses get in financial situations where there's a financial loss or financial difficulty, a lot of times it's because they've made investments in things that were not in line with this next evolution of who they are. Let me put it this way. I have a client who has probably spent about, what do they tell me? About $100,000 on business development or personal development services over the last 7 years. And still, when this client came to me, did not have any sales coming in. This person had money in reserve that they were able to spend, clearly. But they said to me after our third meeting, our third session, said to me, man, I wish I would have given that $100,000 to you, because you've answered in 3 or 4 sessions what I've been looking for 7 years. And I said, I wish you had $100,000. $100,000 too. I wish I had it too, but I'm saying that to say, but this client spent 7 years making investments in things that were not in alignment, and so their business was at a financial loss because of investment. So, what is the answer to that? Is the answer to then stop business, go get a daytime job, a part-time job to make some money? Somebody would say yes. I would say maybe. It varies from person to person. I know that's not the solution for me, because then I'm not gonna have the time or the intensity or the energy to even do what I need to do with my business. So no, that's not how you navigate that. It is a moment now to reassess your values and say, what investment, because see, once you get in that financial deficiency, actually that's a moment to start investing. But you don't invest in making products. You ask yourself, okay, what do I need to invest in to get myself now into the next evolution? So what is the answer to that? What do you do financially? Financially, you go back to values, assess where you are, and then say, what investment do I need to make? Because we get afraid when we're dealing with financial struggles, we get afraid of the question investment, the word investment, because we automatically think we're going to lose money. But investment is not always financial. Because an investment may be you need to invest your time into deconstructing one of your garments and repurposing that fabric to make a new design to present online that is the same fabric that people liked already, but with a new twist on it. Or taking a pattern that you already used and taking fabric that maybe you hadn't used before and utilizing that to present a new iteration of it with the hood. I don't know, but what investment do I need to make? When you get at a financial thing, a financial challenge actually shows up to tell you that on a deeper level, there's a misalignment. Because anything that we experience externally is the manifestation of an internal misalignment.
Yes, it is. Church today, Michael. Let's go. It's the truth, though.
This is what my clients get. So,
and I can speak as a brand. Ashley and I can speak as a brand. It's even a conversation that as a business, Ashley and I have consistently. We just had it the other day. As my business partner, I don't only check in with myself as a business, I check in with her. Is this something you still want to do? Figure it out. Do you want to do it in a different role? What we just had this conversation yesterday.
I was just gonna just make a little point here, because we are a business together. And it could sometimes feel like a really tough pill to swallow when you're like, we're going to change our values, but it's not. It's honestly you kind of have to change what he was saying is your mindset and what things are shifting and values are shifting. And it's not because your brand is awful. It's not because your brand is deteriorating. It's because we're elevating, and it's a different level of elevation that you're not used to, maybe. And we literally just had this conversation, and normally I would be like, what do you mean? But it's no, you're right. The dot is, and I'm only speaking from the dot's point of view, obviously. But the dot, it has another level that it has to get to, and that's with your brands. It's there's a certain level of value that's going to shift, and your brand is going to go. Once you're there, it's
and understanding that sometimes our personal issues can heavily affect our life, our brand. And that was a big part of the conversation that as partners we had to have, where it's we're at a very different place in our lives. We're struggling with identities of our own. So how is this gonna affect our business moving forward? It was having those hard, realistic conversations with yourself, because that impacts business.
Yep.
Can we do a question check-in real quick? I want to see if anybody has questions right now.
Oh, everybody's on mute. Everybody.
I saw April shake her head no.
April said no.
I just wanted to say, when you're talking about when we had a conversation at the event, yeah, I know that I'm good at what I do, but when I'm trying to present myself, I'm like mousy and I'm scared to like,
You lack the confidence.
yeah.
You-
So that's why I'm like, I'm hoping that I can just break through that with this incubator, because I know I have a good product. I know I'm good at what I do. I just have to be able to present it like you said. So
I want to say something. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think Michael and I are gonna be on the. Go ahead, Michael. Go ahead.
Go ahead first. Go ahead.
I wanted to ask you: do you feel comfortable sharing why you have you ever asked why you lack the confidence in yourself? I know that's personal, but it
Yeah.
goes into tying it into why this affects your business.
I'm just like an introvert, I guess. But when I'm out, I can present myself, but then it's like it comes across kind of fake. And so I don't know, I'm just sometimes it's like scared to talk, I guess.
Okay.
So
Okay.
good. So let me say this real quick. I just need to hop in here. So, you know, the people who I like the most who will be sitting in public digging in their noses. I love those people. Here's why. Because I know some people who will dig in their nose and then try to hide themselves, you know, do that number. But I like the people who go right, boldly. It's disgusting, but the reason why I like it is they are in a space, they exist in a space where I am going to be who I am, no matter how disgusting or disdainful you think it is. That's why I say I like those people. Because I also like those people because I know whose hand not to shake.
For real. Seriously.
But my point is, people do not know how to deal with you until you show them who you are. That's my point. People don't know how to deal with you until you show them who you are. And so, you know, one of the things that I love about your brand, Misty, is your own picture, your own headshot. Because I looked at that and I zoomed in and I was like, who is this? And I said, oh, that's actually who Misty is.
Mm-hmm.
But the joy in it for me is when I had that conversation with you at Fashion Week, I was waiting to have that conversation with you after I saw that picture. Because what I was going to say is, Misty, I want to, and I think I told your husband, I was like, just give her a few shots of tequila and then make her go to your place. Yeah. Because there's this level of judgment, right, that we show up with. Mm-hmm. Because the reason why you're even saying what you're saying about like it seems fake, it doesn't seem fake. That's a judgment that you made. Yep. That's a determination that you made that it's fake because it's uncomfortable. Just because something is uncomfortable doesn't mean that it's not real. As a matter of fact, when it comes time for us to really show up in who it is that we are, what it is that our brand is, it's going to be uncomfortable.
It's alienating. It's so many things, and you feel like you're going crazy because and I'm here to tell you, I'm still going through it. Michael's still going through it. Ashley's at the cusp of it, which is the conversation that it's been an ongoing conversation. It's ugly. It is, you know, and it is uncomfortable, and that's what makes you kind of lack that confidence. But honey, step into that. Really step into that. Anything that makes you uncomfortable is forcing you to grow. Seriously.
And this points to my next point. And one thing, you're taking me literally through my list. It's very funny. that branding is repetitious, meaning it is a constant practice of showing up consistently. And so sometimes you're gonna have to show up, you're gonna put the makeup on, put the hair up, and show up, even if you're like, oh my goodness, you're gonna have to do it. Because how can I break in order to, I'm gonna go back to my surgery. I don't know why I've been talking about surgery a lot, but there's something to it. You can't perform surgery without cutting the skin.
That's
Right.
right.
You
Mhm.
can't. Here's the thing that I'm going to say. Fun fact about me, my lung has collapsed twice.
Oh, no.
The first time my lung collapsed, they put a tube in my chest. There's a little dot right now on my chest from when they inserted a small tube. The second time it collapsed, they're like, okay, surgery time.
Oh,
They did a surgery and removed a third of my lung. So I'm literally walking around here with 2/3 of a lung. I'm saying that to say, when they told me what they were going to do, I was like, oh goodness, I'm gonna have a big scar. That was my first thought. And Dr. Barnes said, no, it's a laser surgery. He said, so you have 2 incisions. There's gonna be one on your back from where we go in to insert the camera, and one on your side where we insert the laser. So from a surgery that removed 2/3 of my lung, I have 2 incisions that are about that wide.
Wow.
But it was a major surgery. My point is, sometimes we think that the implications of a major shift in our lives and our businesses means that there's going to be some external consequence that's going to inhibit us. The truth of the matter is that had you all not heard this story from me, you wouldn't even know. Some people will see these scars if they see them, because I don't walk around with my shirt off. But some people who see these scars, they may think, what happened? Did you fall? Did you get cut by a knife or something? Because it literally doesn't look like I had a life-altering surgery.
Mhm.
They attached my lung to my rib cage. So anytime I rub my chest right here, I can feel it in my lungs, because they had to do that so that it doesn't collapse again. But the point that I'm making is, when we get in these shifts, we get so concerned with the aesthetic. How does it look to people? How do people perceive this? That we don't understand that we're gonna have to go through this, deal with this, show up in this way to save our lives. That uncomfortable thing that you're going through and you're dealing with in your business, in your identity, in your personal life, whatever, it's showing up in your life for you to endure the cut, but the incision point is not going to be as major as you think it is, number one. But number two, it's to save your life. Because I almost killed myself trying to keep up with my business. And I don't mean that in a figurative way. I mean, literally staying up until 4 o'clock in the morning and my health is declining, trying to keep up with a business that was misaligned with who I am. So the moment that I started showing up and said, you know what, this is about to be uncomfortable, guess what I did? I cleared my entire client roster, because when I was talking about branding and my whole business was centered around branding, people could identify with that. People were saying, you know what, I'm gonna hire you. But they were hiring me. I was making money, but I was not yielding results. And there was a deeper internal thing happening because, okay, this is out of alignment now. So in order to shift my business into the space that it's in now, I had to completely clear my client roster. What does that mean? Making no money. That's uncomfortable. And I thought that I'm not making any money and it's going to have this effect on me and people are not going to see the value in me. But as a matter of fact, when I cleared my roster and I was willing to say to people, hey, I'm about to do something different. You don't even understand it. You probably don't get it. What's an identity strategist? But guess what? I'm sustaining a business now because I was willing to go through that life-altering, business-altering experience. And now I am better for it. And even still, I'm not racking in $20,000 a month right now. Not yet. By the end of next year, come borrow $20 from me. But but I'm not racking in $20,000 a month. My goal is to do $20,000 a month in my business alone. That's my goal by the end of next year, to do $20,000 a month. That sounds like a lot of money, but it really isn't. It really is not.
And it sounds so, when you come from a place of lack, it sounds like, am I asking for too much?
Yep.
No. And I can say that from experience. I compare where I was then. Do you understand that I charge the client to do, Ashley could tell you, Ashley used to curse me out all the time because I used to do this.
I don't want to hear this.
I charged the client to do production management, sourcing. I ended up actually running around the city like a maniac. Ashley and I were running with racks and rolls of fabric everywhere. I charged this client $1,500.
Let me tell you something. Somebody I was talking to on the phone the other day, one of my friends I was talking to, and he was talking about something about my business and stuff. And then he said, yeah, you can just like charge them $250 and, you know, give them 4 hours a month. I said, I wish I would give somebody 4 hours of my time for $250. I said, my friend, I charge $185 by the hour for consulting. Because the median the median way income in the area I live is $90,000. Wow. And that's just barely making it. That's like average. So when somebody hears, oh, I make $100,000, if I'm making $100,000 a year living in Indiana, it's a totally different thing. I was paying $1,200 when I lived in Indianapolis for a 4-bedroom, 2.5 bathroom house with a full finished basement.
Here, you're paying $4,000 for a cubicle.
Here, $1,200. $1,200 won't get me a 300 square foot apartment. So I can't do. I'm saying that to say, see, we are looking at things from a very limited context. You're looking at your pricing, your product pricing from the standpoint of Indiana or Midwest. When, you know, I went to this brand launch party, well, this store opening party here, and I spent $280 on this. Missy, you've seen that green tunic I have?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I spent $280 on that at this store opening from this Indian designer. And when I told my sister was like, oh my God, you spent, I said, that was the cheapest thing they had in the store. That was the cheapest thing they had in the store. But you have to understand that here in New York, $280 is not the same as $280 in Indiana. My point is, this is why we have to continue to evolve in our businesses. Because as we continue to evolve, we get greater context. Okay. As we are exposed to things, we get greater context. And as you start showing up, Misty, for instance, if you start showing up, you're like, this is too big and this is too much. But the thing is that you showing up in that way is actually giving you context for the next space that you're going into. Because yeah, maybe it's too big for Indianapolis. Maybe it's too big for Indiana. But when you go over to Paris, you're going to find out, hey, I can be that much more. When you start showing in other areas, when you start getting clients in other areas, you're going to start figuring out, oh, that's why I needed to show up this way, because I'm expanding myself. You increase your capacity, the more you can consistently show up as who it is that you are. You're increasing your capacity, but you're also increasing your context, because now you're going to start understanding your value that much more. And when you decide, I'm not going to show up in the fullness of what I see or the fullness of who I am, you're telling people this is the extent of who I am and this is what you can expect from me. But when you're willing to go to that place where it's not comfortable, where you're taking yourself out of an element that has been familiar. And I told my friend the other day, I said, people are often willing to be uncomfortable for the sake of familiarity.
Yep.
Like, people have been familiar. I'm telling you, I don't know if those of you, Emily and Misty specifically, I don't know if you all realize the shift in how I showed up at Fashion Week this year, opposed to how I showed up previously. Remember, previously in 2019, I was running around with like a chicken with my head cut off. I didn't want to go on stage. I didn't want to talk. As a matter of fact, when Denisha called me up to the stage, I came and did a little strut down the runway because I had to show up now in this way where I'm unapologetically who Michael is. Because guess what? That's demanded of me in this space, because now there's an expectation of me to show up in a way so that the people, if I wasn't showing up that way, April wouldn't be sitting here right now. Because I would have saw April and her husband go, hey guys, so good to see you. Haven't seen you in a long time, and moved on. But April is here because we had a conversation and I showed up and I said, hey, this is what I think. And I wasn't afraid. I said, I'm not saying this because Indiana Fashion Foundation is doing it. I think that your next step needs to be to take this incubator. Was I wrong, April?
You were not.
But I'm saying, though, the reason why that's important for you to show up is that you're going to miss opportunities. You're going to miss opportunities if you're not showing up. And so when I talk about branding being repetitious, is I have to practice consistently showing up every single time, even when it's uncomfortable. Do I always feel like getting on call? I'm telling you, one of my clients, we get on these calls and every single time I'm like, oh my God, because I already know how these calls go. They're intense. Y'all see how I deal right now? Think about doing this for 4 hours at a time, 3-4 hours at a time. I'm doing this, but I'm like, oh my God, here we go. But once I get on that call, guess what? Hey, how's it going? Showing up, because that's who I am. I'm a person who shows up. And I'm also the person with this client, I'll say to them, guess what? You're going to have to wait. Like if you're messaging me or calling me, as a matter of yesterday, perfect example. Yesterday, this client was, sending me messages. I do provisional consulting on this app called Boxer. And the client was hitting me up. And I wasn't responding because I was out at Fashion Week Brooklyn. And the client had texted me going, hey, I sent you multiple messages on Boxer. I said, yeah, but it's going to have to wait. So the same client who I'm showing up for when we get on our calls, I also showed up in that space to say no, because I also value my autonomy. And so you're not going to take away from my ability to be free, my processes, expression of myself, my time, all that stuff. And so I'm going to show up here when we need to, but you're also not going to impede upon my time because I value those same things. And so where you experience me being this liberal, giving person, you're also going to be experience the other dimension of me that goes, no. And that's the importance of consistently showing up. Is not always going to be the same expression, but that's the power of it, is that you're self-defined, you have the freedom of expression so that you know what's appropriate in each moment. I think we get afraid that if I present this about myself, then people are going to perceive me. No. What you're also doing is weaving through, because if, Brendan and I have had times where I've said some things to Brenda, she's like, oh, I love that. That's so awesome. And then there's been times she goes, you know what? I hate you. I hate you, because it's a balance. And so that's why you have to consistently show up, because you are now defining, this is who I am. This is what you can expect from me. And it may not be the exact same experience every single time, but it's the exact same person, because I'm clear on. And then you're also dealing with people who, because there are people who want one thing about you and not the other. Y'all do know that, right? But there are people who want one element and one dimension of you, but not the other. But when you come in contact with me, when you come in contact with my brand, you're getting it all. So people can't come to me in my business and want me to give them connections to do this. And I told one of my very, very best friends, I said, I am no longer putting myself in position to give you opportunity if you don't take advantage of any of the things.
Yes, I just did that too.
That I offer my business. And it is one of my very best, like one of my closest friends, but I'm not putting myself in a position where you get this dimension of me, but you don't invest in this other one of me. I have a whole bit. I was offering a class for $18. Emily didn't take it, but she paid for somebody to come to it.
Then you have to understand why it sounds aggressive. And I had to come to this myself, because when you don't show up that way, you become detrimental to your business.
It is aggressive. I'm okay with it.
I'm aggressive too. You know that, but
aggressive as I am, I will rub you when you cry.
I'm done. That attitude is detrimental to your business when you don't show up and you allow yourself not to show up.
Ask me questions, because I'm taking all the time talking about stuff. Ask me questions. Yes. April.
Okay. So you talked about showing up, which is, self-explanatory, but a little bit about me. So I'm a middle child, and I realized like 3 years ago that I had middle child syndrome, because I was trying to figure out like what's going on with me or whatever. Since then, I've been working on that. But I feel like when it comes to talking about my brand, okay, so I believe that the work that I do is really great, but I have a hard time with like expressing that without sounding like, I don't ever want to come off arrogant because I'm a humble person. But then it's like, how do you talk about your brand and you know that you're dope, but you don't want to come off like,
ooh, can I say? Ooh, I think you're gonna say it. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Let me say a few things. Number one, this middle child complex thing. Who told you that?
huh?
Who told you that?
It's just been it was like a few things that had happened, but it's more so like just like past trauma stuff that I've just been working through.
So let me say this. See, you're starting at deficiency.
Okay.
Yep.
You led with that, which means that you're starting at deficiency because now you're saying, I have an issue.
Uh-huh.
No, you don't.
No, you don't. You know, I was gonna say you have
No, you don't.
like none whatsoever.
And see, this is what I'm saying, because now you started with an apology. Think about this. You go to Balmain's website and they go, there's this disclaimer at the top of their website. Before you look at our clothes, please know that we're humble. What?
Okay.
Clearly you're not, because that statement is exactly
no. You go to Balmain's website and at the top of the website, there's a disclaimer at the top of the site. There's a disclaimer. Please know that Olivier was adopted and therefore he deals with some complexes from being adopted. What does that have to do with anything? Yes, that stuff is going to show up, but you don't start from the deficiency. You start from value, because once you get in tune with value, guess what? It will deal with the deficiencies. Guess what? Olivier was able to deal with his adoption thing, the insecurities on camera, made a movie and made money off of the movie that he made, dealing with his insufficiency.
his insecurity.
From value into, and so even in dealing with his issues, he's being paid.
Mm-hmm.
So let's start there. Why am I worried about me being arrogant? See, there are people like you understand this about me. You understand I'm very just talk, like we're going to chill, but there are people who perceive me that way, perceive me as unapproachable, and perceive me. And this is what I say to that. I go, good. You're supposed to perceive me that way. Because if you don't perceive me that way, perhaps you're an individual who will try to cross me.
Mm-hmm.
See, everybody is not going to have the same perception of you.
Mm-hmm.
If you show up, let me say this way. If you show up consistently, everybody's going to have the same experience with you, but everybody's not going to experience you the same.
Mm-hmm.
But if people are perceiving you or receiving you or experiencing you in a particular way, that is not a reflection on you, that's a reflection on them. And they need to perceive you that way for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody who says to me, oh, you're too expensive, you need to perceive me that way because you are not my ideal client.
Yeah.
Now, Brenda, do you mind me telling business for like 13 seconds?
No, go ahead, by all means.
Brenda values what I do and has not worked with me to this day because she's like, well, I can't afford to pay you. And I told Brenda, I said, Brenda, we are not talking about money. If you need what I have to offer and you're going to take advantage of it, just come on. And I called her the other day and I said, and just a reminder, I said, you know that this is not contingent upon money. This is not contingent upon money. My point in what I'm saying to you all is when you operate from value, you are okay with who you are not for. You're okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm telling you, there are many people who I think are gifted, awesome, and who I think I can help, including people who are very close to me. But if you come from deficiency, I'm not the person for you.
And to add to what Michael said, first of all, he had to offer it to me as a birthday gift because I wouldn't have probably accepted it any other way. But that goes to show you that even in my own way, I'm already coming from a place of value because I didn't want to take his course until I had the money. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't that I didn't want to take the course. No, I know exactly what I need. I know exactly what that course is going to do for me. I just value him and myself enough to come in with, with the money to pay for it. And that's why we're here. And I'm actually going to take the course, and I'm very excited about it. But it's just finding that value, and it comes from a place of confidence. I think the first thing you guys have to work on is confidence in yourself as individuals, and everything comes later. Everything comes with that.
Watch this real quick. How many of you, I want you to unmute yourselves, and I want you to say me. How many of you, a part of your brand is making women feel confident?
Me.
How are you doing that if you're not confident in yourself?
My point exactly, because the point is you can't say that you value confidence and then you're not showing up as confident. I loved, and everybody, well, I can say this. The person who I was most proud of at Indiana Fashion Week this year was Emily, and Emily knows exactly why. It doesn't mean that because Misty knows where I stand with her, so she doesn't feel any type of way about this. I was most proud of Emily because I've been in conversation with Emily since 2019, since May of 2019, basically, about this particular trajectory that she's on. And I, just kind of hearing her out, trying to talk to her. I was so proud of her because it was the first time in the almost 3 years that I've known Emily that I saw her show up fully. And Emily, you may not know this. I'm writing on the website. I'm the one writing the review of the collection.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm the one who wrote that is a coming out party.
Yes.
I'm saying I was so proud of that. So much so, Emily, you came out on stage in front of hundreds of people and you danced on stage.
I was scared to death. I was scared to death of participating and being on stage because I don't like being on stage, but I know it's part of the process. So the reason that I asked the models that I did, because they represent the people that I typically am friends with. And I typically am friends with creatives or people in the business of helping creatives. So, it was an international opera singer. And I'm thinking, she's not going to say yes to this. Oh, yes, she did. And then I'm asking the vice president of, I know, right? She was unbelievable. Not only did she say yes, she brought garments to me of what she loves to wear when she is performing internationally. And I got a sense of who she was. So I hand drafted a pattern just for her. And then it was another person who's the VP of the Indiana Arts Council. And I'm like, she's not going to say yes. Oh, no hesitation. She said yes. Another person is kind of quiet, but she writes for fashion magazines.
Side note, she is a brilliant writer.
Yes.
Sorry, anyway, sorry.
And I did not know the one with Indie Arts Council also was co-founder of Indie Maven.
Wow.
So I moved here 2 months before the pandemic. And then I was like really hunkered down in my apartment and ready to lose my mind. So I just experimented with all different avenues of textile art. And I mean, yeah, it was a struggle. We've all been struggling, but I was living in a community where people undervalued me and they expected donations and they expected things for cheap. And I just got fed up with it. And then I came to the weekend where I met you with Indiana Arts Commission, and it was 30 some odd of us artists throughout the state that we got selected. It was in high regard that we were selected to be there. And I met all those people throughout the state of Indiana. I'm like, where have these people been all my life? Young, older, every denomination. I mean, it was incredible. It was an incredible weekend. And on top of it, we were talking about finances. So for it to be an incredible weekend and talk about finances, then parlay that to you coming to speak at that. And then I became associated with Indiana Fashion Foundation because I brought 2 of my youth that I mentor that were in the youth show. And then I started to meet all those people.
My pseudo child, Zarion, that's my pseudo child.
Yes, yes. And so I met this lovely community that was brought together by this new fashion foundation. And I'm like, I have got to move here. I cannot allow people to undervalue me. And my family knew I was unhappy. And I'm like, I'm close enough. I can go home when I need to. But if I do not get out of here, I am going to lose my ever-loving mind. And a lot of what people did in their free time, which was mostly just drinking, that's not what I want to be about or do. It's not part of my values. I'll go out for drinks, but I want something more in my life than that. So then I got into COVID and I was asked to be in the Milan fashion show. Someone on Instagram who recruits for that show said, hey, and I thought it was a joke. I absolutely was like, this is a scam. They're just wanting my money and this is not legit. And then I looked at their website and I'm like, oh, they're legit. All those people who never gave me an opportunity in Evansville, Indiana, that were in positions where they could have helped me, were the first ones to say, oh, we knew you could do it. We're so proud of you. And I'm just like, okay. So yes, it was a coming out party for me. And I appreciated the opportunity with Indiana Fashion Week, even more so than Milan. It was one of the most creative things, collections, whatever, that I'm most proud of. Because in the past, I'd been working with a company in China making my things and I was not happy. And so that's when I said, I am no longer working with that company anymore. I am using a PPP loan to buy my own equipment. I am making it here in Indianapolis and everything is going to be fully transparent. And it's because that's who I am. Those are my values.
So
Yes.
that's what I was gonna get to. Because you said I'm happy you showed up for yourself, because that's essentially what you ended up doing. You
Yes.
ended up listening to yourself, realizing that I'm extremely uncomfortable and I need to do something about it, and you did it.
Oh, there were demons, like demons. This is patterns that weren't working out. And I'm like, what was I thinking?
But
I can't
you
do
dealt
this.
with them, and because you dealt with them, it started to open up doors that otherwise were closed. But you had to go in and figure this out to then get all those opportunities. Look at how everything changed for you in a year. You were at Milan, but those opportunities came when you went inside, figured out what you really wanted, what you were no longer willing to accept, your values, and it brought value. You figured out your values and it brought monetary and experiential values,
Yes.
The next thing I have here is that branding is personal. And this is why I'm saying it. Because of course, what we're talking about here seems very, very personal, right? It seems very, very personal. But branding is personal.
Yep.
You're not just getting into people's pockets to buy your products. See, Emily said this international opera singer brought examples of garments. She made a pattern specifically for this individual, because her doing that actually spoke to who Emily was, but simultaneously spoke to who the person was. Simultaneously, because Emily is a person who likes to create tailored experiences for people. That's something that she very much likes. We were at an event during Fashion Week, and she brings my niece this little mask, this little Indiana mask. But the way that she gave it to her was like, I brought this specifically for Michaela, because that's the experience, that's who she is, and that's how she communicates. It's a personal experience that she's having, that she's giving other people. And so, yes, what we're talking about gets very personal because branding itself is personal. But think about this. That pattern that you made speaks to so many other people now, right?
Yeah, and it's amazing because that full collection sold the week after, and it was basically everybody who wore it bought it. I mean, I'm just going to tell you, Deborah came to the studio, last one to be fitted, and she had a little bit of a meltdown. And she's like, I'm not wearing this. I don't like this. I'm the matriarch. I helped to get all these people together. She goes, I don't like it. And I had to be quiet. I had to listen to her for a while. And I didn't realize she doesn't like how her knees look. She doesn't want her knees to show. And that, you know, we all have our things that we don't like about us. And I got that, and I'm like, oh. So we worked through that. And that is what became this color block dress with the vegan leather color blocking at the bottom. And I love it. And it's the Deborah dress.
I mean,
that was moment. It was like, it was crazy.
And the thing is that she came and immediately, boom, it completely changed the experience. And that's the point that I'm making. It's personal. It's personal. It's personal. It's personal. Branding is personal. Like, the reason why you all are having the experience with me right now, the reason why you're feeling, because I'm talking from a space that's very, very personal. The work that I do in my business, the reason why I understand that's not for everybody, because everybody's not going to be willing to go to these depths in order to do this work. I get it, which is why it's not for everybody. But the right people, we were supposed to have 15 people on in this cohort. Guess how many of you is here? 4. But guess what? I mean, this incubator rather, 4 of you. But guess what? It's the right people. It's the right people. And because it's the right people, guess what? We're able to also give a personal experience and give personal coaching and personal mentorship to you all in a way that we wouldn't have been able to otherwise. So it just all works out. And I just want to say this, that us talking about this, how do we take this and make it tactical, right? How do we incorporate this into our business? How do we take these high level concepts and communicate them into every aspect? Because branding, another point is branding is all inclusive. It's all inclusive. It includes everything in your business. I said that earlier. It includes everything in your business. My father, some years ago, my father has a recording studio in North Carolina, and he asked me to help him with his branding several years ago. I know he anticipated that I was going to create a logo, business cards for him. I said, well, your studio's a mess. You need to clean it up. What does it have to do with branding? I said, because when people come into your studio, you can have a nice website, you can have a logo, all that stuff. But when they come into your studio, if they're not having the same experience they had online, they're going to feel they've been bamboozled. Yep. If I buy your clothes and then your clothes get shipped to me in a brown manila folder envelope, I'm mad at you now. Because now it's going to make me question the product that's inside the envelope. So branding is all inclusive. Even your payment processes are part of the branding process.
We were just going through this yesterday. I'm going to touch on the story after Michael.
Your payment processes are part of it. The hangers that you use, the packaging that you use, all of it's inclusive. The way you communicate on the phone is a part of branding. The way people are easily able to navigate your website is branding. What you wear is branding. All of it's all inclusive. The way your business is structured internally, it defines how people experience you externally. It's all inclusive. And I'm saying that to say the reason why you have to start at a fundamental personal level is because every single thing that we do in our business is going to be dictated by who we are. And sometimes we create businesses that are not in sync with who we are and how our lives go. And so we get all out of sorts. We're not able to give people a consistent experience. And so if I start at a personal level, I can assess who I am. And one of those statements that I always make is build for yourself first and then give to others out of your overflow. Because your overflow is going to be abundant if you have what you need. And so with that being said, how do I take that and make it tactical? Let's go to this. If you all started asking me specific questions about, I'm having issues with this, like you were saying, April, about how you are, how you understood you had this middle child syndrome or what have you, and then you don't want people to perceive you as arrogant. I bet the way that has showed up in your business is you're afraid that if I say, hey, these are my processes, that you're going to lose clients. You're afraid that if I start taking these chances with my visuals, that people are going to say, well, what is that? Who does she think she is? And it starts showing up in every area. If you remove that from that deficiency from your conversation, guess what? Most of the decisions that you need to make for your business, you already know. You've just been second guessing them.
You've been second guessing, third guessing, fourth, and that is a big problem and can downright become almost annoying, if I'm being honest, to your business. When you stop making money, I can guarantee 99.9% of the time it's because you're second guessing decisions.
Okay. Questions
from you guys. No. Wow, this is good.
Mm-hmm. I'm kind of just taking it all in. I don't have any questions just yet. I'm just kind of like absorbing all of the wisdom that I'm gaining. So
good.
I'm here and I'm listening. Just know.
I know I know these conversations. See, this is why I wanted to be such a big part of this conversation with Michael. Because we've had conversations like this on our own many, many times. And one of the things that I always say to him, I'm tired of that book knowledge where they tell you business is supposed to be like this, but they never tell you how you affect all these things in business, how you are the biggest moving part in any business you build.
I'm going to say something really quickly. People will argue that on a corporate level, that that branding is not personal, right? Watch this. Think about the culture of the United States under the last president. Think about the culture now of the United States under the current president. We can look at both of them and go, oh, I have this issue with him, I have this issue with him, but I'm not dealing with issues. I'm dealing with culture. Once President Trump was no longer the president, then President Biden, immediately the culture started shifting. But if you go to the culture before Trump with Obama, culture was different. Before Trump with Bush, culture was different. Every single time we get a new president, the culture of the country shifts. Why? Because the branding of the country is very personal to who sits at the head of that business, of that country, of this country. If you go into business, you
were right.
Huh?
It's a business. Well, you were right.
But if I go to a corporation runs a particular way, a new CEO comes in. Guess what? The entire culture. As a matter of fact, there's a new position that's arisen in the last 5 years called a transition manager. A transition manager is brought into corporations to help them shift as new leadership comes into play, because they understand, or when a business gets acquired, it's a transition. So there are literally transition managers who come into business to help people through this transition. My point is, I don't care how big a company gets. I don't care how big a business gets. It's always going to be very personal. It's always going to be, which is why if you look at these heads of corporations, they probably have shrinks. They probably have coaches. Because in order to really operate, it's personal. And in order to deal with people and to create a culture, and that goes to my next points. The next points are that branding is responsible. Branding is responsible. Next, branding is a story and experience. And we've kind of touched on these things. But finally, branding is cultural.
Knowing the culture of your brand and your customer.
Branding is cultural. And you have to understand that as the lead, I don't care how big your business gets, as a leader of that brand, the leader of that business, you set the precedent, you set the culture of that brand. In setting the culture of that brand, you are dictating now all the decisions that are made. Because let me put it this way. People, so I pastored for several years. And just based on my strong personality, the way I show up, like I was very clear on the things I do and do not like, because that's what I'm going to do. And I don't really care. Like, you don't have to, it's just that I don't like this. And I wasn't a dictator, just said, I don't like this. And this is, and so there are people, I don't know if some of you, Emily and Misty, I don't know if you guys met Alicia, who was doing our VIP coordination.
Yeah.
Okay. So the reason why Alicia works with me is because Alicia was my administrator when I was pastoring. So she's very clear on the things I do and do not like. And so very much the way that things that were handled when dealing with our guests and things for Indiana Fashion Week and the experience they were having was based on a culture that I created 10 years before when she was working with me as my administrator. But again, as the leader, you set the culture of a thing, you create the culture of a thing. And so the way that Indiana Fashion Foundation is, whatever it is and is not, is a culture that Delane and myself are creating based on who we are. And so because of that, there's a responsibility on us to make sure that we're in alignment with who it is that we are. And so guess what that causes? It causes me and her to have some difficult conversations with one another. Hey, Mike. Hey, Denisha. Because there's a responsibility. When you're sitting at the helm of a business, of a brand, you have the responsibility and you hold the weight of the story, the experience, and the culture of that business. And so if people are having an experience with a brand, I've got to take it all the way to the top. I don't care who it is. If I'm looking at Ralph Lauren's brand and have an issue with it, I'm going back to Ralph. What fundamental issue is there with Ralph that is causing this to seep through? And people say that's a flawed mentality, and it's not. I'm not saying just because somebody at Ralph Lauren, for instance, have a racist experience with a customer service rep that Ralph Lauren's racist. That's not what I'm saying. But there's something through the chain of leadership that makes that okay in that moment. Communicate to that person, this is who I can be, who I can show up. And so it may not be that Ralph is racist, but it may be that he's passive. You see what I'm saying? And I'm using him because abstract and like random, like he has nothing to do with anything here. My point is, and I only use him because he's a fashion brand. My point is there are, and so as a leader, you have to be diligent. You have to be diligent in understanding that it's always going to be personal. And it's always going to be a reflection on me. I don't believe personally in working myself to death. Like, I don't believe in that. And so guess what the culture of if I brought on people, guess what I would not allow them to do? Work themselves to death. No, you're off at 5 o'clock. Like, we're done. Don't do anything with work until Monday, which is why I can tell my client, like, no, you're gonna have to wait until I'm available to respond to you. Because no, I'm not about to work myself to death because you feel like I should be readily available to you. And see, this is a good example. I didn't think about this. So I got on a call with somebody, one of my clients, and they were, well, I just feel like you're not available when I need you. And the amount of money that I'm paying, I said, actually, the amount of money that you're paying me is specifically for these calls. I said, all the other services that I offer you outside of these calls are supplemental and they're extra. I said, because the amount that I charge an hour and the amount that you're getting paid, you're paying me a month, only adds up to my consulting fee, not the other stuff. And I do that purposely, not to divide, but I get in a situation like that, you're not about to work me to death because I understand how much I can give you. And I said, are you not getting the value out of our relationship? They go, well, I am. I said, well, that's all we need to talk about.
There you go.
But my point is, but I'm setting a precedent. So if I bring people on to work with me, they're going to be able to deal with clients just the same way. Hey, you're not going to work me, because the culture of this business is that we don't do that. And so that's why we're talking so personally and why we're talking about values and stuff, because you set the precedent. You set the precedent for everything that goes down in your business, in your brand.
And even for how people treat you in your business and in your brand. And even for how people treat you personally. You'll see how when you start shifting that mindset, the way people treat you personally, business, in every aspect of your life changes with it.
Let me say this. For Indiana Fashion Week this year, this is such a good example. For Indiana Fashion Week this year, we were not concerned about budget at all. First year, 2019, I don't want to get into it. But this year, yes, we were being responsible, being vigilant, whatever with it. But we just like, in terms of sponsorship, finances, all that stuff, it was just a different story. And I know next year is about to be even better. But the reason why is because at the beginning of the year, Denisha made two statements to me. She said, I'm not taking crumbs. And she said, if the synergy is not right on the call, we're done. What does that mean? That we could sit there and talk to people and get extra money and all that stuff, but no, we need the right ones. It was almost a stress-free experience planning Indiana Fashion Week, honestly. Just like there were challenges, but stress, very little. Last time, 2019, we got done, I got strep throat the day after because it was that stressful. I have to say, she set a precedent at the beginning of the year. And so we would get on calls and we would know just intuitively, this is not right. Okay, that call is 15 minutes. Thank you, bye. Because as the leader of that organization, she set the precedent. So when we showed up in our sessions with the designers, you guys, those were great experiences, even much more so, Misty, than last year. Much greater experience, much more in depth, because she set a precedent. And so now we have to make sure that if we're expecting the synergy to be right, we have to show up with the right energy to create synergy with the people who we engage with. And so the whole experience of everything all the way through was based on a personal precedent that Denisha set, because she said on a personal level, I'm no longer taking crumbs from people. No longer involving people in my personal life who I just don't have that gel with. She said, even if that means I don't have to have friends. That was personal to her, but it bled through everything that we did as an organization. And on a personal level, what it did for me is I'm not about to waste my time with people, because now it's communicating that to me. And it communicates that to everybody. Emily, all the way to you, is I'm not about to waste my time trying to do this, that, and the other. I'm going to spend my time creating personal experiences for people and creating collections that I like.
Well, I had a really interesting experience this week. Someone who started following me since Indiana Fashion Week, and then on Facebook, and I befriended them. They knew enough people in common. And then they followed me all along the Milan experience, and they're now commenting on everything. And I'm like, oh, this looks like a really great person. And they're like, I want to meet you. I want to, and never gave me an agenda, but I'm like, oh, this could be really good. And then because I've been pushing myself to go out in the community and just be Emily and hang out and do fun things, finally this week, like all this time, I'm finally doing that. I learned that person had, I don't know how to say it, except he had really screwed up a situation for another local designer that I respect highly. I did not continue with that meeting. And it was like, but we're here now, and I have a photographer here, and crickets. I don't owe an explanation.
Oh, you don't.
I don't. And that's how I left it. It's like, I am not putting myself up for that. I'm not doing it. That it's a new Emily.
Yes.
Good.
Thank God.
Good. Yeah. But new Emily is showing up, and new Emily is creating opportunities for herself.
Yeah.
So really quickly, let's tie this into creating our personas, creating our avatars. Misty, let's start with you. Who's your avatar?
Person? What do you mean by avatar?
Who is your that persona, that profile, that customer profile?
Me?
Got it. Emily, who is your customer profile?
I mean, it truly is me.
Yes.
It's what the things that I like, which is the arts in all gamuts and aspects. And that's typically, at least I'd say 50% of the people that buy from me are creatives.
Yep. What about you, April?
It's me, man.
Yeah.
Somebody who is adventurous and super creative and loves to wear things that strike up conversations.
Got it. Let me pronounce this right. Is it Noel or Noel or how we say it? Correct me.
She's muted.
Let me see if I can ask.
Mute. There we go. Sorry, I couldn't find my, I don't know where the screen went. Okay. So yeah, it's Noel. Thank you.
Noel, okay, got it.
Yeah, my avatar is me, definitely, at different stages in her life.
Oh, I was just gonna touch on that. Thank God. Oh, I was gonna say your customer profile is essentially different versions of you.
Yes, yes. So my avatar is multidimensional. She is straddling tradition and Western society. She's every single day she wakes up knowing that she's choosing to uphold her values and she's choosing to be seen in a specific kind of light while functioning every single day with every single day in all of her realms. So she goes to work, she works out, she plays volleyball, she's a mom, she takes her kids to school, picks them up from school, she makes dinner, she loves to cook, and she likes to help her kids with homework, but then at 7:30 p.m. goes and plays volleyball for 3 hours because she loves to play volleyball, you know?
And that is your customer.
Okay, I hope so.
You just created your customer profile.
Let me say something about you really, really quickly, Noel. And I'm just saying this, not having you. I mean, I had to ask you how to pronounce your name, so you know I'm just blindly. But see, you also have an ability to anticipate the future.
Yes.
In a way that most people don't. And you know this about yourself, I think.
Yes.
Which is why you had the struggle with the mother and the daughter thing.
Yes.
Because you're also able to see yourself in the next space.
Yeah. Yes, I
so
am.
Yes. Able to create for future, present, and past you simultaneously.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's something about you that you need to embrace, because even if you look at your brand, it is the past of your culture, the present of your culture, and the future of you as a woman.
Yes, 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 it is.
This touches on something, you know, we discussed with you on our last session, which is, you know, and we discussed it this morning. I said it to you. The first thing I said is your brand is on the verge, and Michael and I touched on it personally, of really, you are creating a lane, not just for yourself, but for everyone in here. Because what you're doing is it's all about modesty, yes, but you're also showcasing that you could be you.
Yes.
Everywhere.
Yes. Yes, yes.
I love this. I love this because I think now we don't have to struggle anymore after this call with our profiles.
No.
Because I think we got it now. I think we get that. So now what we have to constantly do is, what do I value? Yeah. That's easy homework.
Yeah.
Easy homework. What do I value? And then every day, now I can't do this. Nope. You guys will have to hire me for that. I'm not going to do it. But
come on, do it. I'm asking you to do it, please.
What is it?
They did so good today. Come on.
Okay. All right. Let me find my phone quickly. So, you know, I don't believe in setting goals. I'm just not that. I do believe in having objectives, yes, but not setting dead set goals, because I don't believe in being married to outcomes. So, you know, I think many of you have probably heard of SMART goals. SMART goals, okay, it doesn't matter. You shouldn't hear of them because they're pigeonholing. There's a thing that I use. I say you create a pact. And the reason why I said I wasn't going to give this to you guys is because I teach it in the cohort. But creating a pact is an acronym, PACT, pact.
Okay. It
means aligning yourselves with objectives that are, number one, purposeful. Purposeful. What does that mean? Purposeful means objectives that are aligned with your identity and values as you're setting objectives for your business. P, that's purposeful. A, actionable. Listen to this one very closely. You're going to like this one. Actionable are objectives that are acted upon without overthought or over planning.
In other words, informed impulsiveness. That's what I like to call
Right.
that.
P, purposeful. A, actionable. C, continuous. That is objectives that are consistently being more integrated into your being. As you're asking that question, what do I value? You're setting objectives that cause those values to be more integrated into your being so that you're not having to ask about that anymore, that you're just becoming it. P, purposeful. A, actionable. C, continuous. T, trackable, which are objectives that are progressive with evident change. Objectives that are progressive with evident change. What do I mean by that? That if I go back to my value of autonomy, for instance, my value of autonomy, and I say, I want to set an objective to work autonomously based on my own definition of it. That's my objective. It's not, I don't have a deadline for it. But I can track now. A year ago, I was operating in a way where I still felt like I had to operate from this particular systems of business. Now, I have a website, not because business told me that I needed a website, because I operated a full year without one. But I have a website now because I feel like it's a necessity for the next phase of my business. That's trackable because now I can see the evident change. And I've operated autonomously to the point now that I'm able to engage the next phase of my life. So P, purposeful. A, actionable. C, continuous. T, trackable.
Can I just say, there was a reason I asked them to give you that. That applies to your whole business plan that you are creating, your everything that we're asking you to use all this information. That right there, you can apply it to every aspect of this project, including your lookbook. It needs to be purposeful. It needs to be actually everything that he touched on needs to be showcased in everything you put out there for your business. Yeah, I know it's deep. It's deep. Any questions, guys?
I just have one question. What would you like us to work on before the next session?
Your values. Figuring out what your values are and finishing it and using that to in turn figure out your customer, which you guys already know who she is because she is you. You guys look at your customer every day in the mirror, every aspect of your customer. Some days she might feel a little more manly. I woke up on the androgynous side of the bed today. My name is Brendo this morning. You know, it's just or Brendan, you know, it depends. Today I feel like a Brendo though. I'm a little aggressive this morning. You know, but it's just using the value system, packed all of that to define your multi-layered customer and your profile, and then using that to start kind of, that's all we're going to work on till the next one.
Because the next one is going to be very, because this is Brenda's favorite.
This is my realm of expertise. I will give you guys a little inkling as to what we're going to look forward to on Tuesday. I have two people coming on with me. I haven't even told Michael this one. One is Raza, who runs Storytellers, Creators and Storytellers is a factory here in Brooklyn, manufacturing company. And then I have another manufacturing company who is specific to you guys, who's opening up brand new. She's a startup company as are you guys, right? But what's good about her is she is solely working on low minimum startup designers. You guys are her clients. So that's a major reason why she's coming on board. And what I want you guys to start coming up with from here until then, specifically for the both of them actually, is just questions, not so much questions as to how they can work for you, but how you are a benefit to them. Start thinking of those questions. I know you're probably like, what do you mean I can be a benefit to a factory? You're the business. You understand? You're the business. So figure out, okay, how am I an asset to any manufacturing company that I come into? And how are they going to be an asset to me? Start coming up with questions like that you might want to ask. Also think of ways that they can service you better, because that's a major reason why they want to be on board. This is why they want to speak to you. You are the future of where manufacturing is headed.
Mhm.
You know, so come up with things that you as a designer have been lacking and would like to see in these manufacturing companies. See, that's one of the ways you're an asset.
Mhm.
Let me ask something to you guys really quickly. So one of the sessions that we've had planned, hold on, give me 1 second. I need to make sure I say this correctly. One of the sessions that we had planned was the one that we replaced today with brand identity, which is the garment construction, the elements of, is the design elements and technique.
Yeah.
On a scale from 1 to 10, how important is that to you all? And I'm asking for a very specific reason.
It's important to me, Noel.
Okay.
It's like a scale of 1 to 10, I would say it's like 9.5.
Okay, good.
Same.
Okay.
What is entail? Actually, because I
So
do my patterns and things. So
you did one more time?
I make my own patterns and samples and
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah,
Like,
that's interesting you would say that, because I was like, well, you guys are designers, so I would like to see why you think this class would be very detrimental.
So, because this deals with like garment construction and technique, and this is not just about like you being able to, but also giving you different ways of, because so part of the thing that we were going to do in this session, I'm going to give you this, is that we were going to do a live draping demonstration. That's the word. There we go.
Mhm.
I didn't know how valuable that would be to you all, but I thought that, and then dealing with things around garment quality, because, you know, it's so inclusive. And sometimes we don't realize, just like, you know, excuse me, Brenda, give me technical terminology for this. Because
I mean, construction to me is highly important, but a step further is fabric knowledge and just understanding quality. And that doesn't necessarily always mean using a silk, you know, where I feel like that's where I struggle with designers. You know, it's like knowing your fabrics and knowing that not just because it's fancy means that it's quality.
And then just even like terms of things like notions and things, I mean, all that stuff matters.
For sure. I would say for me, it's probably a 5, because that is my core base knowledge since 1987.
Right.
And I'm a textile artist, so even was an assistant curator of textiles for a museum. So I would say for me, it would be a 5. However, if it included like more technical layout software of how to lay out my own pattern with my print on it and send it to my printer, that would be different.
Okay, so this is what I'm going to ask you, Brenda. Is there any way for us to set up mentoring sessions individually based on those needs? Because I think that will be more on target. Because
I think so.
Part of my pause with that. So we have a mentoring session that's coming up on the November 2nd, I think. November 2nd. What I want to do is I want to move that up to October 26th. We're supposed to be talking about media and press relations, and we will still talk about that. But I want to move that conversation, that mentoring session, up to October 26th.
I think we should actually switch it, because it would make sense for them to have a better understanding of their fundamentals before we even discuss press, because that's the last thing you really have to worry about. You know,
last on the sessions, but I think we move that mentoring session up. Brenda, can you you know what to do. Get with each of them and figure out how you can, and then we'll navigate that. You can tell me how I can help, and we'll just bring on the mentors to individually talk to these people in that session.
For Emily, I have a specific person I would like you to speak to that already works in textiles. I just have to see what their availability is. I've told you this before. I'm going to keep telling you. I know you're a designer, but textile, that's one of your many lanes.
Oh no, because since I've gotten back from Milan and I'm working with creatives, and one's a well-known designer here, they're like very interested in using you for hand dyeing and very interested in using you for you to develop a signature pattern and print for my next collection.
I might even say, I'm not gonna might anything. I'm telling you, you might even want to consider starting a collection of textiles, because that can actually fund your clothing line.
We have to talk.
Yeah, seriously.
About that.
I'm just telling you, because I really dug into what you're doing with it, and you should consider doing an online. We're gonna talk. Here. I had to wait. I had to stop myself.
I have thousands of textile prints and patterns ready to be printed that are
don't tell anybody that you only have 10. You only have capsule collections, because if you have 1,000, that means you literally have 10 years worth of work.
And I picked some of my top sellers for my holiday collection.
Yeah, we're gonna have I would really like to sit and I'll sit with Michael and plan it out. We can have a whole day, Michael.
So that October 26th. Actually, let me do something. Let's do this October 23rd, because that's a Saturday.
Next Saturday. Okay.
I think that's better on a Saturday rather than doing on a Tuesday evening. And so we will do the marketing and retail on the 26th instead. And then we'll move media and press relations up. And I'll give you all a new schedule. I'll make sure we send you all a new schedule, but we'll do that. Okay, we're over time.
We're over time, but you guys have any questions before we end?
Nope.
No. So what are we working on today? Values and finishing our customer profiles.
Okay.
Do you have any suggestions on how we should focus on our values, like make a list, or how would you suggest?
What is the best way you digest information? Like if you write it down, how do you digest information best?
I just make like a grid, and I just start writing things down how I feel, I guess.
However's for you then. I think that's it. And then
we're not going to see it. You're going to read it to us. So however, right. It's whatever makes you comfortable.
Because the other thing is that once you guys have your pitches and you have these things to present, I want them to be authentic to you. And so that's why we didn't provide you with like an outline, like this is how this should go. Brenda gives you high level, like this is what it needs to include, but it needs to be authentic to you because it needs to communicate. Again, this is an opportunity also because you're going to be doing this in front of people at the conference. It's an opportunity for your potential client to go, hey, I need to connect with that.
Or I stand in front of the mirror and try to get speak and then get confidence, because when I have to step in front of people. So this is another thing that I'll be working through as well with you.
I know this is going to be very personal too, but I have to tell you this. Stand in front of the mirror every morning starting tomorrow. And just tell yourself how awesome you are. And I know that sounds corny, but trust me, if you did that every day, even on your worst day, it really has a way of just starting to just change your mindset. I started doing that a year ago, something so simple. And I can say on a personal level, I have come a long way just by telling myself every morning, even when my hair looks like this, I haven't brushed my teeth, I have eye boogers, and I'm awesome. And it's gotten me to a place where now, unless you interact with me on the same level that I treat myself, I don't want to interact with you. So if you're not treating me in the awesome way that I treat me, I don't want to bother. Okay. So Misty, I think you're awesome. And I'm going to use a curse word. You're fucking awesome. You're feeling it. So tell yourself that every morning. I'm fucking awesome.
I'm fucking awesome.
I'm going to use a curse word. I love this.
I'm sorry. I just have to say it because it's like I've seen your work and it's beautiful. You know, it's like your energy needs to match that.
You're right. Right. Thank you.
Okay, I'm very honored to be a part of this every day with you guys, like honestly. And I want you guys to feel that same way about yourselves. This is just as much good for me as it is for you guys. So on
Brenda,
that note, yes.
Really quickly, make sure you put your email address in the chat so everybody has it. So in case they need to contact you with anything.
Yes.
I just did that in 2 seconds.
Thank you all so very much for your time, attention, and engagement.
We will see you.
Thank you guys.
Thank you. Bye.
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 Wait, you didn't